Hello everybody, it is Joel here from PC Games N, and I'm joined by Ben.
Hello.
And this is something of an Overwatch This special, in which we're going to chat a little bit about who might be the next Overwatch hero. So
Very
we've got,
exciting.
it is very exciting. We've got a few contenders, and we're going to kick off with the most likely, which is Doomfist. So yeah, Doomfist is the one. It's sort of the new Sombra, really. Doomfist is the new Sombra.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the one that we think is probably by far the most likely for a number of reasons, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. Like, it's the one that's kind of been hinted at for a long time. Doomfist was actually featured in the original opening cinematic that they showed at BlizzCon when they showed off the game. His gauntlet is the thing that the little kid punches Widowmaker with at the end, and that they are there to steal. Widowmaker and Reaper are. Originally, he wasn't actually going to be a big character, but once he was in that, they decided to kind of develop him out a bit more. And he's also been kind of teased on Numbani is the most obvious place. There's like 3 posters that are about him. And the reason there's 3 of them is because he's actually like not one guy. He's like a generational superhero, as they call it, which is kind of like the Flash or Green Lantern, who is a character that has a power that is like tied to something that can be inherited.
Yeah, the power's in the object rather than the person.
Yeah,
right?
or like within the suit or whatever.
Right,
You know, in the case of other characters. So here it's like if you have the Doomfist gauntlet, you are Doomfist.
Yeah.
And there are 3 of them. There's posters on Numbani, like I said. There's the Savior, who I'm guessing is a good guy, sort of because A, the name, and B, the way he's portrayed in the poster looks quite heroic. Then there's the Scourge, sounds a bit like a bad guy.
Does a bit.
And also, again, in the poster, he looks kind of super mean. And then there's the new one called the Successor, which is the current Doomfist, who you can only see, like, the arm with the fist on it.
Yeah.
But the, like, face is completely shrouded. He looks like a big burly guy, but other than that, we don't know a lot about him.
So the likelihood is that it would be that version, the shrouded third version that we get as and when we get
I mean,
him.
like, the reason he's shrouded is so we can't see him.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
that when he's revealed, it is a surprise.
And so, as you say, like, he's been around a long time in that opening cinematic, and, you know, as with Anamari and Sombra, we kind of know a bit more about him than we do any possible other contenders, which is, I guess, why people point towards him as the most likely next candidate.
Yeah, when he's been hanging around so long, and he's mentioned in, like, a couple of voice lines, he's on a map, he's, like, you know, present in maps. His gauntlet is actually what you're moving around the map in Numbani, so he's quite, you know, central to that theme. And in the same way, you know, Sombra was kind of, her name was on a few maps even before the ARG kicked off in earnest. So yeah, I would say that the likelihood is, because of that, that's why people think he's next, and puts him as a likely candidate as well.
For me, the real compelling evidence came by the fact that The Rock tweeted about it.
Well, yeah, like when so there's this whole thing going on with Terry Crews, who people want him to voice Doomfist. It seems like Terry Crews wants to voice Doomfist. He's been to like Blizzard's campus and stuff. And then like The Rock came out and said, yeah, Terry Crews should voice Doomfist.
It was so
and,
random.
Like, if The Rock says something, I'm not saying it should happen all the time.
Mostly,
but it's
though.
like it's worth more than my vote.
It's a better endorsement than almost any other endorsement.
Exactly. So like that's kind of the other part of the whole Doomfist thing is that there's been this whole campaign to get Terry Crews to voice him, who is a pretty good actor and would probably be a decent voice actor. I think it'd be very funny.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he'd fit into that world of kind of quirkiness that quite well if they manage to get good writing for him.
Yeah.
Whether that's going to happen, like Terry Crews is a fairly famous actor at this point. He's probably
he's
his
probably
time's
about the right
worth
level
quite a lot
of
money.
fame for that. I would think he's not too famous to do it, especially if he wants to do it.
And at this point, if anybody else does it, like that's going to be quite
He'll
disappointing.
kill
So
them.
they've kind of backed themselves into a corner with this one. I think what will happen is, even if Terry Crews doesn't end up voicing this character, assuming this character becomes a hero fairly soon, he will probably have some kind of small role in the game, possibly related to Doomfist.
And if and when we do see Doomfist, the likelihood is you think he'll be a tank.
Yeah, so there's a couple of reasons for this. One, it just kind of fits. Like when they're building these characters, smaller characters aren't tanks. And larger characters are. That's just like the way visual kind of storytelling has to work, so that oh, that's the one I'm meant to be shooting at because it's largest, or their hitbox needs to be larger so people can literally stand behind them.
Yeah,
and they can tank for them. So yeah, he's a massive burly guy. He's also like got, we would assume, some kind of melee focus because he's entirely about his gauntlet.
Big glove,
his massive fist. You could call it some sort of doom fist. And yeah, like, if you are a character that is going to need to get into melee versus, a majority of ranged heroes, and also a lot of heroes that can do a mad amount of damage close up, then you're going to need a bunch of HP. If you have a bunch of HP, you're probably going to be a tank unless you're like really weirdly designed. It's also tanks and supports. There's only like 5 each. Sorry. So those are the two classes that at the moment need additions.
Yeah, that sounds about right. So the next one we're going to talk about is Athena. So I don't know about this. I don't know. I feel quite skeptical about this.
This one's definitely less sure, right?
Yeah, it feels like as a personified in-game playable hero, to me, Athena seems like a weird choice, but there are reasons why it might be a thing.
Yeah, well, so this is kind of something where I think the community kind of latched onto this idea of Athena, who is the administrator from TF2, but the Overwatch version. She's this friendly AI. In the lore, she runs the Overwatch installation, so to speak, and she's kind of mates with Winston and that sort of thing. She's been present in like the plot and the maps since the game entered beta. Basically, she wasn't in that first cinematic because there wasn't any computers around, basically. But her voice has been on every single map. You see like terminals and stuff for her in the Overwatch related maps, like Overwatch has in the in-game organization. There was also originally, I think it was one of the first bits of concept art they showed before they'd even announced all the characters. They just said, here's a bunch of people from Overwatch, and quite like near the front in the center of that picture there is a kind of sleek robot with the Athena logo on its head. And that has made people go, well, that looks like a hero, and that's cool, and we'd like to see this character be more personified.
Yeah, it could, as you say, though, that kind of concept art doesn't necessarily mean anything. It's more about like a feel and a mood rather than these are actually the people we're all going to be able to play as every single last one of them.
Yeah, like her position in that piece of concept art would suggest that maybe they were a little more sure that they would do something with it than some of the characters that are further back. But there are also characters all over that we just haven't seen.
But the centrality might be because she is central to the world of Overwatch rather than she is going to be a playable character.
And then even if she showed up in that form, it might be, that she's just like that for a bit, or like during a cinematic or something like that, rather than is immediately introduced as a playable character. The thing about it is this kind of stuff does work two ways, where because of the community, and this is kind of like the Terry Crews thing, I guess, the community has gone like, oh, that looks really cool. Now they want that. And obviously it is Blizzard's job in at least some capacity to provide for the community to answer their wants and do what they want them to do. So even if it maybe wasn't originally planned, it might be something they've moved towards. Upon release, we asked Michael Chu, the lead story guy, about this, and he didn't have anything to say, but they're not going to tell us when they have these massive marketing plans the size of Sombra's to go through instead. But I think it's a possibility, partly because of that community outcry for this to be a character.
I think that is possible. I just don't think it would be I don't think it's a good idea, personally. I think having this kind of disembodied AI voice being a part of the universe in the way it is works better than suddenly bringing it into flesh and blood or bits of wiring. So I'm not a huge fan of it, really.
It would be slightly weird.
So there's a couple of other ones we're going to talk about as well, one of which I think is possibly more likely a candidate further down the line. So there's two here. We've got what we've called the mystery pair, we've seen in some Origins videos. One of whom we think is Liao. Now, I think that seems like after Doomfist, our next hero, right?
Yeah. So like, if you were going to kind of go right, what are the next three heroes? It would be Doomfist, Liao, and then this other mystery woman that's from this Origins picture. So this came out of Anna Amari's Origins trailer. There's a bit where you see the original Overwatch team from when they were originally fighting the Omnic Crisis, like 20 years before the game is set. Everyone you recognize is there, except for two people on the very outside. There's a guy on the left who I think might be Liao, and then the other character on the right, just this kind of badass woman with these metal arms who looks really cool and is definitely kind of them going, here's a character.
Yeah. I think, like, if we look at it, we're maybe due a man because we've had two
This is
women.
true, yeah.
And, the person who we think is Liao has a name at least, so we know
exactly.
slightly
and
more about him.
That name was mentioned in, like, one article, I think it was, one in-universe article where it was just, Liao exists.
It's super speculative at this point, obviously. Like, as we spoke about before, we don't even know how many characters we'll get in, say, the course of 2017. We think it might be 3, maybe.
Yeah, like 3 to 5.
3 to 4, maybe.
Guess, but yeah.
But Doomfist seems like the most likely. Please do drop in any ideas you have in comments or point us towards, any discoveries you found on the net. We do have a massive article about this, which is constantly getting updated, which we'll bung in the description. So for all breaking speculation, have a look there, and then we'll try and keep you updated in video form whenever we can. But yeah, hopefully we've got some vague idea. But as and when, I think we're kind of just guessing a bit.
Within the next 12 months.
Within the next 12 months, we will have some new heroes
Maybe.
who may or may not be these people. But yeah, those seem like the most likely candidates so far. Hope you enjoyed the vid, and give us a like if you would, and subscribe for more Overwatch videos in future.